Delighted to see so many people in the audience because this is a topic which generally is considered not very attractive. It is about geopolitics, it's about the world, not about India, not about, although geopolitics has politics as a component, it's not about day-to-day politics, nor is it about any ideology. In fact, one of my colleagues asked me when I told him about this book that why are you writing this book? You should be writing something about Hindutva. You are an RSS man and you should be doing that. You should be probably writing about your ideology. I said that in my many decades of association with the RSS and all other organizations, I understood that the only ideology we all adhere to is what we generally call as nation first. What is good for our nation, what is good for our country is what our ideology is all about. This book is, in that sense, also a contribution to what is in store for our country, for all of us in future. How should we brace ourselves for a big shock that is awaiting us in the form of many new things that are going to happen, or already have started happening in front of our own eyes. We all are familiar with a brief history of mankind. We do not probably read too much about it, but we know that there was a phase of colonialism when certain European powers had colonized a large part of the world, which today we call as Global South. That was colonized for more than 2 centuries by European powers. We read about that era in our textbooks or elsewhere. We ourselves were a colonized nation until 1947. The British had colonized us. Subsequent to that, we hear about a world in which we all have lived for the last 75 years, basically after our independence. The era of colonization has ended. A new era of globalization has started. That era, which saw the rise of institutions, global institutions like the United Nations, World Bank, IMF, from there to the latest one, World Trade Organization, so many such global institutions, International Court of Justice, UNCLOS. That world we have seen. We all have lived in that world for last so many decades. That world was a world where the Western powers played a dominant role. Dr. Ramesh talked about how USSR was also an important country in the last century. It was. But essentially it was important in the context of throwing a challenge to the US and the Western powers. Beyond that, it was not any big economic power or a big any other big power. It was definitely a big military power. It mastered certain technologies for some time. First 2-3 decades, it mastered space technology. It mastered certain defense technologies. But beyond that, its importance was limited in the world. Sooner than later, by 1980s, it started becoming very weak, and in early 90s, that Soviet Union collapsed. But all the while, the Western powers remained very influential. So much so that, probably in this audience, there won't be a single family which doesn't have one of their relatives living in Europe or America. If I ask you, do you have any relative in Russia or Soviet Union, you will say, no, sir, no, Baba, we would not have gone there. So that explains the difference. The world we lived in until now was heavily dominated by Western powers because they were economically prosperous, technologically advanced, and offered a kind of lifestyle, or what you can call as modern civilization, which was attractive to everybody. We all started following that lifestyle. Suit and tie became the norm in the whole world, entire world. Today, the order is changing. We are entering into a new world. Unknown to us, the world is very fast transforming into a totally different entity. Remember, history never moves at the same pace. Sometimes its pace will be excruciatingly slow. You know, when we were in the British colonial rule, not we, probably hardly anybody in this audience would have seen British rule except a handful of you. But I have heard from our fathers, grandfathers, that it used to be such a painful history. Nobody knew when it would end. As if history had come to a standstill. Those phases also will be there in the life of a nation, of a people. But sometimes history picks up such a momentum that before you realize you are transported to somewhere else. We are in that period of history which is moving very fast. Unless we realize that the world is pacing ahead in such intense speed and try to catch up, we will be left behind. There will be situations when you are left behind. Like, I just now earlier mentioned that when colonialism ended, a new world was sought to be created by the Western powers. Why Western powers? Why not we? Why did we not try to create that world? Because we were essentially a slave nation at that time. We were under British rule. We just got our independence in 1947. It was around that time that the world was being reshaped in the mold of Western powers. We did not have much say in that. We did not have the chance to have a greater say in that because we were ourselves busy with our own work. In fact, very interestingly, when this United Nations Human Rights Commission was being formed in 1940s, in 1946-47, the process began. Ultimately, it was created in 1948. In 1946, while preparing to draft a set of fundamental rights for the entire humanity, that was the purpose of United Nations Human Rights Commission, to state or to enumerate certain rights as fundamental to any people, anywhere, whether you are in a democracy or a dictatorship or under a king's rule or something else, wherever you are, these rights cannot be taken away. Like that, certain fundamental rights had to be framed. See, the framers of those fundamental rights sent letters to 50 important people in the world. One of those who received that letter was Jawaharlal Nehru, who was our Prime Minister in 1946. He became Prime Minister in 1946 in the interim government. The letter said, we are trying to identify which rights should be incorporated in this Charter of Human Rights. Suggest what you think as appropriate to be incorporated, inserted, or included. Nehru said, I am very busy. I don't have time for all these things. We are about to become independent. I am busy with the work of my country. So all this, how to give you fundamental rights to all people in the world is none of my business. But I have a fellow in my country who has a lot of time. So I will forward this letter to that fellow. Who was that fellow? Gandhi. Nehru forwards that letter to Gandhi. Remember, Gandhi was busier than Nehru at that time. Gandhi was busy attending to people affected by communal violence. 1946 saw worst communal violence in the history of our country. Direct action in middle of August by Jinnah and Muslim League that had led to massive killings and all sorts of atrocities. So Gandhi was touring extensively to assuage the hurt feelings of the people, both Hindus and Muslims, even to Muslim areas also, even to Hindi areas also. But in spite of his hectic travel schedules and all, sitting in a train traveling, one day he writes a reply. His reply was, you see, my mother told me that you have no rights as a human. You only have duties. But if you perform your duties, the rights of all others will be automatically taken care of. Like, today it is a Saturday, holiday. You have a right to spend this evening with your family, enjoy nice food at home or mostly outside. Nobody eats at home nowadays, especially on a weekend. But if I continue to speak for an hour and a half until 8:30, that right of yours will not be protected. What is needed for me is to understand my duty, that I should let you go home by 8 o'clock. That is what Gandhi said. If everybody start to follow his duty, perform his duty, automatically all other rights are protected. But rights by themselves do not exist. That's what he said. It doesn't mean there are no rights. Rights apart from duties don't exist. This was a great contribution, but nobody took that message seriously. We only have fundamental rights. Even in our constitution, we had fundamental rights as one full section from Article 14 to Article 36. But we did not have fundamental duties in our constitution until 1976. In 1976, through 42nd Amendment, Indira Gandhi had inserted the list of 10 fundamental duties of all of us. But the sad part or the travesty is that while fundamental rights are all the rights that we all have to enjoy, they are enforceable rights. Fundamental duties are not enforceable. I mean, if you don't do that, nobody is going to ask you anything. They're there just for the sake of, we are also talking about Gandhi's fundamental duties. But I'm not getting into that, but going back, so when that world order was being made, we could not play any big role. Because a slave country won't have any respect. Nobody will care for your views. But this time, when the world is changing, situation is different. We are no longer a weak country. We are a strong country. We have a strong leadership, a visionary leadership. If today we fail to grasp this intensity of the change that is happening in front of our eyes and try to play a role in it, we will again be missing the bus. If the last world order was heavily influenced by the Western powers, failing of countries like India to play a role may lead to some other country taking lead in shaping the new world order. Because after all, somebody will get it. Who that somebody would be, it is not difficult to guess. It will be countries like China. That's the reason why it is important to understand what is happening in the world, grasp it quickly, and then also think, what should we do? That is also a patriotic dharma, according to me. This book of mine tried to address that one particular need. Understand where the world is going and see what we should do or what we can do. I, as an author, would naturally be very interested to tell a lot about the book. I would be happy also. But my publishers will be unhappy. If I disclose everything, you may not buy. So I will only try to give very basic outline, but I would ask all of you to please buy and read. Buy and read. I mentioned it in a program yesterday also. I have got a personal library of a few thousand books. I always used to, because I am an RSS Pracharak, so many people used to come to my room and see the books, and they used to ask, can I take this book home and read it and give it back to you? I had my own experience with such people. So I put a board in my library that please don't ask for taking a book from this library to read, taking it to your home. Because all these books were collected like that only. And I then put another board. One who lends a book is a fool, meaning me, if I give you. And one who returns it is a super fool. Those who take will never return. So, please buy and read. Don't lend and don't borrow. That apart, let me just give you a quick idea about where we are heading. Geopolitics is one part, as Dr. Ramesh said. In the last century, we had an America on one side and the USSR on the other side. Today, we generally see America on one side and China on the other side. But this is not the same as the last order. This time these two countries are there, they are fighting with each other, they have a lot of things happening between them, and new Cold War is brewing, that's what's happening, but many other countries are also rising. It's a world where many middle powers also become influential. One of them will be India also. It's another matter. Many of us, Indians are generally very romantic people. We do not think anything short of Vishwaguru. So when I say that two big powers and we are all middle powers, you may feel offended. How do you call us middle power? We are the superpower in the making. But the reality is that there are many middle powers which include India, Turkey, Indonesia, South Africa, Russia, countries like Japan, South Korea. Many countries are rising with a predominant influence, which probably sometimes regional, sometimes extra-regional, going beyond regions also. India enjoys under Prime Minister Modi an influence which goes beyond regions. We have a global say today. This is the new world where multiple poles exist, which many people describe as multipolarity. But beyond multipolarity is another reality, which I called as heteropolarity. What is heteropolarity? You know, when in 2022, on 22nd April 2022, it's a very interesting date. 22 to 2022. You know the significance of that date? The Russians had first attacked Ukraine on that day. Before attacking Ukraine, before attacking Kyiv, Ukrainian capital, Russians had sent malware into their ground stations of their satellites. This malware had corrupted the software in the ground stations. As a result, Ukrainian satellites got completely disconnected with their ground stations. The communication network had collapsed. You all can imagine in Bengaluru, I don't have to give too much explanation. Without communication, nothing works. Army cannot work, Navy cannot work, Air Force cannot work, government cannot work, nobody can work without communication. So the Russians thought it will be a walkover. They sent a few army helicopters full of their soldiers. What should Ukraine have done in such a situation? They should have either approached Biden, the then American president, for help, or Europe, countries in Europe, Germany, France, UK, for help. Instead, the Ukrainian foreign minister turned to Twitter, used his VPN or whatever. He tweeted a message to Elon Musk saying, Mr. Musk, you want to take people to Mars, but here are our people who are going to be swallowed by this mighty Russian army. They disconnected or destroyed my communication network. Please help us. We all know that Elon Musk has got Starlink satellite terminals all over in the sky, in the space. In 1 hour, Musk replies to the tweet and he says, Ukrainians, don't worry, I am there, by evening I am giving you 500 communication terminals of Starlink. By evening, Elon Musk restored communication systems for Ukraine. Ukraine fought back, evacuated all the Russian soldiers who tried to enter Kyiv, and today also Ukraine is fighting back. Who is Elon Musk? Is he a country? Is he an army? He is just a technocrat. He has a good tech business. Today, he is able to save countries and also harass, embarrass leaders, which he is doing. I was in Hungary recently. The Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, was there. There was a conference. The Prime Minister came to deliver the keynote address. He started by saying that Hungary is facing a big threat. I thought he would talk about Russia, China, America, Europe. Some country must be a threat to another country, right? But he said the biggest threat that Hungary is facing is from George Soros. Now, who is George Soros? An investor. How can an investor be a threat to a country? But that is the new world, where an investor with a lot of money power, a technocrat with a lot of tech power, can defy sovereign powers of nations. We have entered that kind of world. We are a big country, so we probably don't understand it. But smaller countries, Donald Trump decided to cut all the funding to USAID. USAID is a body that supports NGOs in the world. When that aid was cut, so many countries in Africa started facing lot of problems. Problems with respect to food supply, milk supply, water supply, sanitation, because all that was being managed by NGOs. Today, NGOs can be a force. We all used to say that Taliban is a big terrorist organization, but Taliban is the ruler today in Afghanistan. We have read that ISIS is a big demonic terrorist force, but ISIS rules Syria today. So the terrorist, the NGO, the technocrat, the investor, they also can be a big pole, big power in this new order. That's what I said is a heteropolar reality. We are in a tech reality. Last century was about trade. Economy and trade drove nations to higher status. But in this century, technology and trade will drive nations to higher status. You may have a lot of money, but if you don't have the technological advancement, you have no role. Technology has become a key driver of the new world. So much so that deep tech areas like artificial intelligence, quantum, robotics, semiconductors, space, aerospace and defense, genetics and biotechnology, crypto, these 6-7 areas will be the determining areas for the future of mankind. You will be very soon seeing the emergence of a new kind of human who can be called a meta-human. Meta-humans are no longer the characters in a sci-fi movie. They will be a reality. Already in many countries, in fact in Europe, in some countries, including capital cities in some of the Western European countries, today the street policing is done by robots. Street policing. Humans will be taking a secondary role. Machines will be deciding things in the new order. One of my friends told me that one day he entered the office on a Monday morning and tried to log in. The computer said that your desk is changed. We assessed your performance last week. We found it lacking, so we are changing you to another department. He told me, yeah, this is a new thing now. There's nobody in front of me. If it was my senior manager, I would have picked up a quarrel with him. I would have filed a false case against him. But it is a machine which is saying your performance was assessed by me. I found you lacking in so and so. I'm shifting you to another table. Machines boss over men. Artificial intelligence today has reached a stage where it's no longer artificial, it is real. It has the ability to think real-time intelligence, which we still continue to call as artificial intelligence because we want to at least feel superior. We are no longer superior because the machines which are more intelligent than us. The only question that is bothering many in the world was, today we have machines which are more intelligent. But do we create machines which are conscious also? Meaning, if you scold a machine, will it start crying? Or will it hit back? If you scold it, will it also scold you back? You can create such apps, as a young man, on my computer I used to have an ape, a monkey. Whenever I typed a wrong spelling on the computer, it used to jump up and down and say, you fool, wrong spelling, wrong spelling. It was an app developed by some funny fellow. It was just an app. It had its own limitations. But maybe tomorrow there will be real monkeys on your computer which will scold you, which will shout at you. We are entering that era. This is not just a fiction, it is a reality. Humans have had 45,000 years of history, what we call as Homo sapiens. We all came after the Neanderthals had ended their life. Homo sapiens began their life some 45,000 years ago. Maybe we are entering an era where our term will end, the era of meta-humans will begin. Don't worry, not tomorrow, day after. Maybe another 50, 60 years. We are moving in that direction. So technology will dominate everything in our life, every aspect in our life. Social issues will change. On one hand, Dr. Ramesh said, nationalism is making a return. Yes, countries are turning inwards. It has its own consequences. Globalism has ended. United Nations is irrelevant. United Nations in the last 2 years has passed 46, 47 resolutions asking for Israel to stop operations in Gaza. 46, 47. Nobody cares. It passed dozens of resolutions on Ukraine asking Russia to stop. Nobody cares. So today these have become just talking shops. Nobody really cares about these institutions. So countries are now thinking that now that United Nations cannot protect me, let me protect myself. So countries are turning inwards. At the same time, a new social extremism is also growing, which we call as wokeism. Wokeism means at one level countries are becoming more culture-centric, more nationalistic, at another level one section is becoming more extreme, which refuses to recognize anything, including your family, your society, your nation, your values, including your gender. You know, in UK, in many schools, parents, when they go to admit their child in the school, they can fill up all these columns, but not the gender column. They cannot say that my child is boy or my child is girl. The school says that column will be filled up by that child after he or she turns 14. They will decide. But you may say, sir, gender is about body, right? But the new woke thought is gender is not about body. Gender is about what you think. If you suddenly at 15, the age of 15, you say that I am a woman. If you are a man and you say I am a woman, everybody should agree you are a woman. A woman says I am a man, you should agree. Biden, in 2021, one of the first executive orders he signed was to allow men to use women's toilets. Because that is the new world. There are about 60 countries where same-sex marriages are legalized. There was this issue before us also, in our country also. So in the Supreme Court, the matter went up to the Supreme Court. Government of India said, okay, we are not getting into the debate of whether same-sex relationship is good or bad. That's a sociological debate. Society should debate, not the government. But if you say that the marriage has to be accepted, marriage is a sacred institution. That institution cannot be accepted to be deviated from whatever is understood as marriage. So our government said no to same-sex marriages, but not all countries. Many countries today legalized it. We are also entering into that kind of a world where such questions will come up. This is the kind of the world we are entering into. Are we prepared? Problem with us is we are a very romantic people. At one level we are very romantic, at another level we are quite lazy. We are ad hocists. We are okay from, we grow from 2 trillion to 4 trillion, we are very happy. This growth happened because of the efforts of one man, namely the Prime Minister of this country, Mr. Narendra Modi. So we are very happy. We should be happy. We should be proud that today we have become 4th or 5th largest economy in the world. But is that enough? India has to reach at least $10 trillion before it could claim any legitimate right to intervene in the affairs of the world. So, first of all, we have to shed this laziness, lethargy and romanticism. सोते रहो और स्वप्न देखते रहो कि विश्वगुरु बन गया है. We all want India to become Vishwaguru, undoubtedly. But Vishwaguru is something that others call you. You don't declare yourself as Vishwaguru. But we are declaring. You have to rise to that level where the others say that India should be my Guru. That's what is Vishwaguru. We have to now seriously think about reaching there. Shed the romanticism, shed lethargy, work extremely hard because the road ahead is very, very tough. We have achieved so many great things in the last 10 years. In fact, that gives us today the confidence that now we can now tread ahead with more courage and more determination. It is possible. Probably 10 years ago, had we visualized this world, we would have raised our hands and said, yeah, what can we do? Let us follow whatever happens, let us see, let us face it. But today, that's not the case. We have the ability to intervene, but to reach there, we need to equip our country, not in so many centuries and all, next 1 to 2 decades. As I said, India has to, first of all, become an economically strong nation. Of course, the basic requirement is unity. Economically, we have to grow much stronger than where we are today. Let me tell you, even if we achieve 10 trillion economy, we will still be having $6,500 per capita, which will be half that of China. It will still be half that of China. How much work we have to do, imagine. Secondly, for this to happen, it has to be a popular effort, not the government's effort. India's society is extremely lethargic today. Our education is in a shambles. I'm sorry, we have educationists sitting here, Batla, Rupa, all of them are sitting here. But it's in a shambles. We are very poor in original research. We don't do any R&D. Total R&D investment in India in a year is about 75,000 crores. It's another matter. Now government has announced 1 lakh crore R&D fund. But that is over 5 years and all. It has its own limitations. But the point is, if government has to spend on R&D, and government also announced that I want to spend 1 lakh crore on job creation. If government has to spend on R&D, government has to spend on job creation, everything government has to do, let's call ourselves a socialist country then. Let government do everything. People have to today stand up. We have to develop great R&D in this country. We are very, very backward. I can give you one example for you to understand. In the semiconductor industry, there are 8 stages. India doesn't exist in any stage. not even in packaging. The final stage is packaging. The packaging industry is dominated by Malaysia. Government is working very hard, and the first advanced fabrication unit fab is being built in India today, in Gujarat today. But it will be building 28 nanometer semiconductor chip. Whereas the NVIDIA here, if there is an NVIDIA employee here, they will know.
6 nanometers.
2 nanometer design is happening. 2 nanometer design. They are not yet successful, but it is happening. Quantum is the future. We are still in supercomputer era. Supercomputers are also important. I am not saying they are not important. Supercomputers do what an ordinary computer does in a much faster pace. Our best supercomputer, which is there with BHU Varanasi, is 72nd in world ranking. That's our best supercomputer. In quantum, we are nowhere. IIT Bombay professor who is invested heavily on quantum technologies has come up with a 6-qubit quantum computer. Quantum computers are independent systems which work much faster than supercomputers. Supercomputers are faster than computers. Quantum systems are much faster, they are much more faster than supercomputers. The 6-qubit computer is what our technologists in IIT Bombay have created. But today, Western world is seeing 500 qubit quantum computers. We are at 6. Imagine the gap. That's why I'm saying, now don't put all the blame on the government. Because of government action, we have come this far. But where are our corporations? Where are our MNCs? Where are our tech giants? Except in fintech, where have we created value in terms of our innovation? Fintech, yes. Digital public goods, yes. But where else are we? So India has to prepare much more vigorously in order for it to be able to play a role in this new world. And it also has to think about its population. We are already a 1.4 billion plus population, and in next 20 to 25 years we will be crossing 1.6 billion. We are very happy about demographic dividend. It's not always a dividend. If you feed them properly, if you extract output from every citizen properly, then it is dividend. Otherwise it is a population liability. Today, every year, 20 million people in our country are becoming employable age. 2 crore people. How many jobs can we create? Half. 1/4. Where will the others go? Why we are unable to provide jobs is not because we don't have jobs. We don't have skills for those jobs. Ask companies here, they tell you that we announce, we call people for jobs, we find 2,000 people applying, but only 20 will be there with required qualification. Out of 2020, 1%, 2%, we have to do a big time reskilling. That's why activities like GCCs have to come in. We need to totally change this landscape of our economy, our technology, our trade, our training, our education, our innovation. The entire landscape has to change. Then we can really face this new world. While doing it, one thing we cannot overlook, and that is, while doing all this, remember that India has to stand up as a distinct entity. In the process, it should not be that we end up as a carbon copy of another European nation. India has to stand on its own identity. Because after all, when you become powerful, we become influential, what is it that we want to do? We want to give that value system to the whole world. We should be holding that value system very dear to our heart. So you have to build Bharat, but you also have to build brand Bharat. This Bharat will be a distinct European country. Just let me end by reminding to you, where today I mentioned earlier, that if we don't play a role, China will play a role. Meaning what? China is also like any other country, right? But no, we know that when China rises, with it, it brings a particular way of, thinking, particular way of life. Like how the West tried to impose its values on all of us in the last 100 years, which we call as Western values. Tomorrow, China will try to impose its Sinic values. We have to guard ourselves from this second, other type of value invasion. But at the same time, we should be able to bring to the table our own value system. What are those values that we bring to the table before the entire world? And that also we have to think very seriously. We need people like I mentioned about Gandhi, Aurobindo, Deendayal Upadhyaya. Such people who look at this situation today, look at the opportunity that is available to the country and offer a new version of humanity, human values to the mankind. That is what is Brand Bharat, about which also we have to think. This is the canvas. This is new world. This is where India has to stand. My book talks about these issues. I once again ask all of you to find time to read, because this one book that I feel that everybody should read, right from student to somebody who is now retired or probably not doing anything, everybody should read to understand where we are heading and what we should do. I thank you once again for patiently.